Hi, this is Sandy House. I'm sorry I can't be there with you today, but I hope I'll get to visit soon and show you even more reasons to get excited about MyMathLab for School and MathXL for School. Today I'd like to share with you 7 reasons to get excited about using the software in your classroom. Everything I'm going to show you today is true for both MyMathLab for School and MathXL for School. At the very end of this video, I'll talk to you a little bit about the differences between those two softwares, but right now just keep in mind that everything you're about to see is true for both. The first thing I want to talk about is student accountability. When you use MyMathLab or MathXL for School, students are held accountable for accuracy and correct mathematical notation on every exercise without you having to do all that paper grading. So instead of taking up numerous papers and just giving check marks for effort, which I understand, I had to do it for years as well, you can now hold students accountable for getting the correct answer on every single problem. Students are able to track their own progress and proactively participate in activities to improve their knowledge and grades. So you can put the impetus back on the student because there's always a way that they can make up the work and do better in your class. Students are able to work problems until such time that mastery is reached. So there's no excuse for not learning the material, because if you put in enough time, you can definitely learn the material and make a good score. Number 2, just-in-time help. MathXL MyMathLab provide a variety of resources to help the student who says, "Miss House, I understood it when you went over it in class, but when I got home I couldn't remember what to do." So if you're like me, you've heard this from students often. So let's look at all the different ways students can get help. The first one is called Help Me Solve This, and I'll show you an example of that. But it helps the student step by step working through the problem that they've been presented with. There's an example just like every single exercise that the students can read and follow along. Many of the exercises will have videos, and these are really popular among students. There's a multimedia text that has integrated audio and video and try now problems. Some exercises will also come with animations. And there's also the Ask My Instructor button if you choose to leave that learning aid turned on. So, let's say a student has missed an exercise, which is indicated by the red X, and the student needs some help just in time to help them with this problem. Every exercise in a practice format that would be in their study plan or on an assignment or on a homework assignment that you've created will come with a question help button. Under the question help button, the students will always find Help Me Solve This, View an Example, the textbook, the calculator, and the Ask My Instructor button, and the print button, unless you choose to turn them off. Now, videos will be interspersed, but not on every single exercise. If the student chooses Help Me Solve This, it will help them with this exact exercise. It will ask them to interact in intermediate steps, tell them how many parts are remaining, they check their answer, and they get intermediate feedback. If they miss it, it tells them the answer, but then they're asked to continue. Now, notice when I closed it, it regenerated. Let's look again. Help Me Solve This helps them with this exact problem, shows them the number of steps, asks that they interact in an intermediate step, but when they close it, watch carefully, 5x to the third, 16x squared minus 16x, it's going to regenerate. Now, if they don't want to get help with their specific problem, but they just want to look at an example, they can view an example. They'll have the same kind of steps, but this time it'll be a different exercise, and they won't be required to interact. They can just follow through and take a look at the solution. Now, this is not displaying correctly because of the way I have my recording screen set up, but when students are looking at this, it'll be very easy for them to read. Close it and it stays the same if it's an example. Some exercises will come with a video.
Let's factor this trinomial. What's the first step in factoring any polynomial? See if there's a common factor other than 1 or -1 that can be.
So there's a teacher there helping them go through a problem that's like this problem. They can pause it, they can rewind, they can fast forward. Link to the textbook. So it opens up to the section where the content is covered. And in this case, it's factoring trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. There are videos on the left, links to videos to the different objectives. The first video is for the entire section. Video 1 is for Objective 1, Video 2 is for Objective 2, and Video 3 is for Objective 3. The students can interact with this by highlighting if they would like to. They can also add themselves a sticky note. And if you're looking at it as in the instructor view, you can actually add a sticky note that'll go to everybody that's in your class. So when students open up the textbook, they can have a sticky note that have the thumbtack that says there's a sticky note. So if you wanted to make sure that students are reading the book, you could actually intersperse these thumbtacks throughout and then ask students to, take notes on those examples or those sort of things so that you can check that they're actually reading. Exercises will come with a calculator, a basic 4-function calculator, if you choose to leave it turned on. And Ask My Instructor is a feature that allows a student to send you an email. And once you get that email, there'll be a link to their actual exercise, and you can reply with help if you'd like to. Now, any of these learning aids can be turned off at the course level, the assignment level, or the exercise level. So you may not wish for students to have a calculator. You may not wish for students to send you emails. So you can easily turn those off. This is just what is available if you leave everything turned on. So this gives students a variety of different kinds of things that will help them just in time when they're stuck on exercises.
Another great reason to get excited about MyMathLab and MathXL for School is that cheating can be greatly reduced when you're using this software. All students will get an algorithmically generated exercise set, which makes copying assignments impossible. You can scramble the question order on tests and quizzes, which makes it even more difficult. Students are forced into a how did you get it conversation versus a what did you get conversation. And there's a lockdown browser that can be used to prevent students from accessing other websites during testing. So they can't open up Google or Purple Math or Mathway or any of those sites when taking a test or quiz.
So I want to show you an example of how exercises are algorithmically generated. So this is in the teacher's view of a homework exercise that can be added to an assignment, and above there's the objective is written at the top, and here's the problem: to factor this trinomial completely, and the student would have a choice between two answers, and they could either select that it's prime, or if they select A, they have to actually factor it completely. So the answer is actually showing here. So what I want to do is I want to reload it to show you the different versions a student might see.
So as you can see, as I reload the exercise, I can see that there are multiple versions that a student would get. That means the student can work the exercise as often as they need to until they can get it right. MyMathLab and MathXL for School, when used in certain ways, can help your students develop better student metacognition. Students can be allowed to take unique quizzes until mastery is demonstrated. The study plan provides a visual aid for students to know where their strengths and weaknesses lie. And as a teacher, you get to decide the level of proficiency and the type of assignment that allows a student to reach your mastery goals. So unlike some software that predetermines what constitutes mastery, you know your students better than anyone else, and you'll get to decide. The study plan is a great way for students to visually see their progress and to also work on their metacognitive skills of understanding what they know and what they don't know. So here's a sample student study plan where the student is working in a particular chapter on sets, and the student is weak in Venn diagrams. You can see a thumbtack here. But where you see a graduation cap, that's a signal that the student's mastered that piece of material. Now there's also a link here to Quiz Me, and that means that the student has done practice and answered items correctly on that practice, and they're ready to take a Quiz Me to see if they can get a graduation cap. Now this comes automatically set up so that students can go in there at any time and they can practice and quiz themselves over each of the skills that are in the course. And when you create an assignment and you want that assignment to also track their mastery, you can make sure that you check a box that says, hey, also populate their study plan with this. So the study plan is available 24/7, 365, and you don't even have to set it up, but students can go in at any time, find their weaknesses, see their strengths, practice if they need to, or take a quiz when they're ready. And in order to practice, all they have to do is click on the objective and it'll give them practice exercises. And when they're ready, they can come back and they can take a quiz. MyMathLab and MathXL for School also provide for differentiated instruction. You can use a feature called personalized homework, and that means each student will get a remediation assignment tailored to his or her specific weaknesses. The study plan lets students know their strengths and weaknesses at all times. It's a visual way for students to see what their strengths and weaknesses are. Each student is allowed to work similar exercises as many times as needed until mastery can be reached. So while one student may get it on the first try, another student may need to try 2 or 3 times before they completely understand it. Number 6, exercises, exercises, exercises. One of the most important things we as math teachers look at when we're trying to decide on a textbook or program is the variety and availability of the types of exercises, as well as the level of difficulty. As we said before, all exercises are algorithmically generated, so they can be repeated as often as necessary for a student to gain understanding. Each exercise is key to a specific item in the actual textbook. For example, 6.7.5 means the item is like the item in Chapter 6, Section 7, Number 5. This numbering system makes it very easy for you to create an exercise set for your students. You can just have your textbook open on your desk and pick out the items that you like and then just click them and add them to an assignment very easily. And you may also select items from other Pearson Mathematics textbooks. So perhaps you want to find an item that's a little bit easier than those that are in your textbook. Or you might want students to have exposure to a variety of different kinds of application exercises, so you can go into a textbook and find those. So they made MyMathLab where it's pretty easy to find exercises to put on assignments. When you're inside the Creating Homework feature, you pick your chapter, You pick your section, and then you can actually filter down to even to the objective. In the left-hand side here, you will see all of the items that are available for a particular section or objective. Let's filter down to an objective. And if you've picked that item from the book and you know Chapter 7, Section 2, number 25, you like it, you can just add it by clicking the box and clicking Add. Or if you want to actually click on the item, you can see the item close up, and you can reload the item to see the different versions that a student would get. And if you like it, you can add it. You can also look at the help features that are available, and you can also look at difficulty level ranking in many of the textbooks. Not every textbook has this, but most of them do. Now, an important thing also when you're building an assignment is maybe you want to find another problem that's a little bit easier or a little bit more difficult, or maybe a unique application exercise that's different from what's in your book. You can change your textbook and you can pick any book from Pearson's list. So maybe you're teaching pre-calculus and you really like the Blitzer book, but you also like the Sullivan, and you have both of those desk copies, and you've looked in both sections and you pick some from Blitzer, and you go over and you find Sullivan. Blitzer's your main course that you created your course around, but you also like a couple of questions over in Sullivan pre-calculus, so you go over into the Sullivan pre-calculus and you switch over, select that book, and now you're inside the Sullivan book, and you can add problems from that book. And last but certainly not least is the amount of tracking of student performance that MyMathLab and MathXL for School do. MathXL for School and MyMathLab for School track student activity and performance. Once students have completed an assignment, the assignment comes with an item analysis button that allows a teacher to quickly assess the whole class or an individual student's progress toward meeting the assignment objectives. And there's a way to do a quick query that will allow you to find a subset of students based on various criteria. And finally, data is quickly exportable as a spreadsheet. So once students have turned in an assignment, each of those assignments in your gradebook will come with a little button called the item analysis button. So here you can see homework number 1, and this is a name that I gave it, and you can give your homework any name you'd like. I have a class average, I have a class median, I know how many students took it, and if I click this blue item analysis button, it will open up that assignment for me, and I can see every objective and how many students of those who submitted it got it right, partially right, incorrect, didn't try it, and the average and the median time that students in my class spent on that item. Now I can quickly scan and I can find weaknesses. So in this first assignment, 17 students, it looks like the worst problem was this number 13, 1.2.45. And so I can make a note of that, or if they've encountered that on a quiz, this happens to be a homework, but I'm going to go to the next assignment, which is a quiz, and one of the things you'll notice about a quiz is that when you locate a exercise they didn't do well on, you can actually click that number and open it up right there and go over it with your class. Now this is the class aggregated data, but if you export the data at the bottom, you can export this particular spreadsheet showing how your class performed on the objectives, but you can also export the student details. And I'm just going to save this to my desktop. And once it's downloaded, I can open it up. And so what's really cool here is I can see the performance by every single student. These are their names here, so I've kind of hidden them. for their privacy. So every student who has a 1 got the item right. If they have a fractional score, that means they got part of it right. Or if there's a 0, they missed it. Now, this student didn't do any work. And if you see the initials INC, that means that the student skipped that item. It's an incomplete, they skipped it. So you can really track how students are doing on the objectives by looking at the item number, the objective, and whether each student got it right or wrong. So here's a quick synopsis of the differences between MathXL for School versus MyMathLab for School. MyMathLab has a tab that gives the students direct access to the e-text, so it's very easy to navigate to a particular chapter or section. You also get course management. You can add your own content, create HTML pages, discussion boards, customize the order of the tabs on the left. With MathXL for School, the e-text is accessible through the study plan and the homework assignment, but not through a particular tab on the left-hand side. Also, the tabs for students and for instructors in MathXL for School are set. You can't add your own content or discussion boards or that sort of thing. But everything you saw today is available for both.